There are moments in Hollywood where the gloss of celebrity is so forcefully peeled away that what remains is raw, brutal, and impossible to ignore. And right now, that's exactly what's happening to Blake Lively. The woman once revered for her elegance and flawless public persona is watching it all collapse, not at the box office, not on the red carpet, but in the courtroom. The world is watching, and what they're seeing is absolute chaos. Her legal team, once a pillar of her aggressive counterattack, is now crumbling from within. In a shocking development that has rocked both legal observers and the Hollywood elite, Blake Lively's lead attorney has just quit, and not quietly. Insiders say the resignation came after a series of heated behind-the-scenes confrontations, mounting frustration with Blake's erratic instructions, and most damningly a growing sense that her case is fundamentally weak. Sources close to the legal team reportedly confided that not only was Lively's position deteriorating, but she was also refusing to follow sound legal advice. And now her case is at serious risk of being dismissed altogether. This isn't just about a celebrity in trouble. This is about what happens when a carefully curated public image collides with the cold, hard reality of the legal system. Lively's camp initially tried to spin the story, suggesting a routine transition in her legal strategy. But legal analysts aren't buying it. Because when a top-tier attorney abandons a high-profile client mid-fight, it sends one message: disaster is coming. And here's where it gets worse. According to confidential documents reviewed by reporters under seal, the resignation wasn't voluntary. Lively's former lawyer allegedly filed a motion to withdraw as counsel, citing irreconcilable differences and an irreparable breakdown in communication. In legal terms, that's about as serious as it gets. It means that not only is the attorney refusing to continue, but the attorney is suggesting that proceeding would violate ethical obligations. And that's rare, especially in a case of this scale. So what does that tell us about Blake's position? First, it tells us that this is no longer just about the facts. It's about trust, strategy, reputation, and possibly panic. From the moment this legal war ignited, triggered by explosive allegations and countersuits between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, the press has been feasting on every new development. But now, with her defense team in turmoil, Lively's future is more uncertain than ever. And there's more. According to newly leaked memos, the attorney who quit had warned Blake repeatedly about presenting false narratives to the press and interfering with evidentiary procedures. Let that sink in. Her own attorney warned her about manipulating media and interfering with the legal process. If that's proven true or even partially substantiated, it could open the door to sanctions, reputational ruin, and even criminal exposure. Let's pause there and consider the broader context. In recent months, Blake Lively has aggressively positioned herself as the victim of malicious rumors, character attacks, and defamatory accusations. Her team publicly labeled Justin Baldoni's legal claims as baseless and an obvious publicity stunt. But behind the scenes, cracks were already forming. We now know from court filings that key evidence Blake promised never materialized. Her legal team had committed to producing exculpatory texts, third-party affidavits, and internal communications that were supposed to obliterate Baldoni's narrative. But as of the last court deadline, none of it showed up. The judge issued a stern warning, but what wasn't disclosed until now is that Blake's team was internally splintering over how to handle the lack of evidence. Some wanted transparency. Others, reportedly including Blake herself, wanted to delay and deny. Then came the tipping point: the judge's ruling that Taylor Swift's private messages were relevant to the case. That bombshell sent shockwaves through both legal camps. Blake's entire strategy rested on keeping certain communications out of court. But now, with those messages likely to be unsealed, the walls are closing in. Multiple sources within the entertainment legal world are saying the same thing: this case is becoming toxic. No one wants to touch it, one attorney told reporters anonymously. There's too much ego, too much press, and not enough substance. It's a legal black hole. Another added, this is starting to feel like Amber Heard 2.0, only with more power players and fewer facts. And let's not forget the public relations nightmare that is now spiraling out of control. Blake's team had hoped to keep the attorney's resignation quiet, but in today's media environment, nothing stays hidden for long. Within hours, entertainment blogs, legal analysts, and mainstream news outlets began reporting on the story. TMZ, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, all of them latched onto the same headline: Blake Lively's attorney quits, case in jeopardy. So what happens now with her legal team in disarray and a critical court hearing looming in the next 2 weeks? Blake has been forced to scramble for new representation, but it's not that easy. You can't just plug in a new attorney and pretend everything's fine. Every legal team has a rhythm, a process, and internal code. And starting over at this stage means rebuilding from scratch. More importantly, it signals weakness to the court, to opposing counsel, and to the public. A sudden legal reshuffle screams we're losing. And in high-profile litigation like this, optics matter. They influence how judges view credibility, how the media shapes the narrative, and how public sentiment crystallizes. And if you think the backlash is just limited to the legal arena, think again. Hollywood is watching and reacting. Publicist whispers suggest that studios are growing increasingly wary of attaching Lively to major projects. It's too much baggage, one executive reportedly said. You can't market a film around someone whose name is attached to a media circus and a potential perjury scandal. There's even talk that endorsement deals are being quietly paused, pending the outcome of the legal mess. And that brings us to a crucial question: why did her attorney really quit? Was it ethical pressure, strategic collapse, or something even darker? Insiders are suggesting that the attorney's resignation letter, though not made public, included veiled references to client obstruction, media coordination without consent, and non-cooperation with legal discovery. That's huge. If even part of that is accurate, it could suggest Blake actively undermined her own defense. Not out of malice, but possibly out of desperation. This wouldn't be the first time a celebrity imploded under legal scrutiny. We've seen it before, stars whose image is so intricately constructed that when the mask starts slipping, they panic, make impulsive decisions, and end up digging themselves into deeper holes. And according to those close to the case, that's exactly what's happening here. And in the court of public opinion, the tide is already turning. The court of public opinion is shifting, and it's shifting fast. With the resignation of her lead attorney now dominating headlines, Blake Lively is no longer the darling of Hollywood. She's no longer the untouchable A-lister with the picture-perfect marriage and untarnished reputation. She's now the face of a legal disaster, and the fallout is expanding by the hour. Once the news broke that her attorney had officially filed a motion to withdraw, the dominoes started falling. Media outlets began dissecting every detail of the ongoing case, and for the first time since the scandal broke, the mainstream coverage wasn't fawning or sympathetic. It was brutal. Public sentiment began to curdle, fueled in part by resurfaced clips from past interviews, where Blake appeared overly defensive or evasive. When asked about her relationship with Justin Baldoni or about her recent dealings in Hollywood's elite inner circles, critics were quick to point out a pattern of behavior: smiling through discomfort, dodging direct questions, and issuing carefully worded press statements that now read less like PR brilliance and more like cover-ups. And then came the reaction from Hollywood insiders. Agents, producers, and former collaborators started whispering to journalists. She's always been calculated, said one unnamed source. Everything with her is choreographed, but this is the one script she couldn't control. Another insider from a well-known studio revealed that Blake's name had quietly been removed from a short list for a major streaming series. Why too risky, they said. Nobody wants to greenlight a PR nightmare in this climate, especially not one involving potential court sanctions or media manipulation. Even those who were once staunch defenders of Blake are backing off. Social media, once filled with glowing tributes and girl boss quotes featuring her face, has now turned skeptical, even cynical. Posts that once celebrated her as a feminist icon are being replaced with deep dive threads dissecting her alleged power plays, legal contradictions, and the concerning optics of her attorney's departure. And let's not overlook the impact this is having on her marriage to Ryan Reynolds, which is reportedly under intense strain. While Ryan has not publicly commented on the matter, sources close to the couple say he's furious that the situation has gotten this far. One insider claimed he didn't sign up for this. He thought the legal stuff would be a nuisance, not an existential threat to their brand. That brand, Lively Reynolds, Hollywood royalty, the perfect couple, has taken a hit. And it's not just the press or social media. Even their joint business ventures have started seeing pressure. From sponsorship deals to production partnerships, companies are asking hard questions. How involved was Ryan in the legal strategy? Did he know about the potential misconduct? Was he part of the pushback against Justin Baldoni's claims? But while the public, the media, and the industry are busy analyzing the ripple effects, the real storm is still in the courtroom. Because here's the truth: when a case starts unraveling like this, it's rarely just because of one mistake. It's a chain reaction, and right now that chain is snapping link by link. Sources say that the new legal team Blake is scrambling to assemble is already facing internal friction. Several prominent attorneys reportedly refused to take the case, citing reputational risk and client volatility. One former federal prosecutor turned defense attorney told journalists if her previous lawyer couldn't manage her, "I'm not interested in trying." That's significant, because the kind of legal firepower Blake would need to survive the season, connected, unshakable. won't work with a client who's not listening, and if she continues trying to micromanage, strategy craft PR spin mid-trial, or selectively withhold information, any new counsel will face the same problems. And then there's the judicial reaction. Court insiders say the judge is deeply unimpressed with the delays, contradictions, and procedural chaos coming from Blake's side. In the last hearing, the judge reportedly warned all parties that unsubstantiated claims will not be tolerated and that the court will not hesitate to dismiss filings for failure to comply. That might seem like standard courtroom rhetoric, but in context it's a serious threat. If Blake can't get her legal house in order fast, the judge may toss out key motions, deny discovery privileges, or worse, dismiss her countersuit entirely. And that's not just a legal loss, that's a full-on public humiliation. Let's be clear, this case has already drawn comparisons to the Depp Heard trial, but in reverse. Back then it was Johnny Depp on the ropes, hemorrhaging public support, until he turned the tide with a meticulous legal strategy and a courtroom demeanor that won people over. Blake, on the other hand, is losing control on all fronts. Her lawyer is gone, her evidence is missing, her credibility is under fire, and the press is no longer treating her as the victim. Instead, she's looking more and more like the architect of her own downfall. And let's not forget, this all started with an attempt to discredit Justin Baldoni. Blake believed she could silence him, control the narrative, and emerge victorious. But now it appears that Baldoni was far more prepared than anyone gave him credit for. His legal team has been tight-lipped, professional, and consistent. They've produced documentation, timelines, and third-party witnesses who support their claims. More importantly, they've avoided the media circus, letting Blake drown in it alone. That contrast between her chaos and his composure is starting to shape the public's perception of who's telling the truth. And just when you thought things couldn't get worse, a sealed deposition transcript leaked revealing that Blake was directly warned about the potential fallout from pursuing the lawsuit. Without solid grounds, the deposition quotes a former advisor saying, "I told her she didn't have enough, that it wouldn't hold up in discovery. But she said it doesn't matter, I have to make it stop." That one sentence, "I have to make it stop," could haunt her forever, because it suggests motive, not to seek justice, not to protect herself, but to shut someone down. And that changes everything. It reframes the case not as a defensive response to malicious claims, but as a possible act of intimidation. And if that narrative takes hold, Blake isn't just a fading celebrity in a messy lawsuit. She becomes something far more damaging in the public eye, a powerful figure who tried to crush dissent through manipulation and legal pressure. That's a narrative Hollywood won't forgive, because in this era, post-Me Too, post-Depp v. Heard, post-Trust, the public is hungry for accountability. Not the kind that comes from a press release or a staged red carpet moment. The kind that comes from real consequences. And if this legal chaos continues, Blake might be facing more than just a dismissed case. She might be facing career collapse. The silence from Blake Lively's inner circle is now louder than anything they could say, as the legal firestorm grows. As documents leak, as the headlines multiply, and the court deadlines loom, one thing is clear. Blake is losing control of the case, of the narrative, and of the public's trust. What's even more disturbing is that many of Blake's closest allies in the entertainment world have gone silent or even started distancing themselves. There's no open support, no public statements defending her, no "we stand with Blake" hashtags, and in Hollywood, silence is rarely innocent, it's strategic, it's self-preservation. Behind closed doors, several former collaborators are allegedly instructing their teams not to engage, not to post, and not to comment publicly. One source from a prominent fashion house said, "We've had our PR people monitoring the situation. Until it's resolved, she's off the list for campaign opportunities." That may sound like a small loss, but in the world of celebrity branding, it's enormous. It's not just about a few missed photo shoots, it's about the quiet collapse of a persona that took over a decade to build. Let's talk about that persona. Blake Lively wasn't just famous for acting. She was known for being one of the few safe celebrities. Non-controversial, stylish, brandable, family-oriented. She had the perfect Instagram, the perfect red carpet, marriage, the lifestyle that young fans and luxury advertisers adored. But now that entire image is collapsing under the weight of one critical miscalculation. Thinking the court of law would play by the same rules as Hollywood. Because in Hollywood, perception is reality. You can spin, delay, and deflect. You can work behind the scenes to kill a story by silence or package a scandal as a misunderstanding. But in court, facts win, documents win, evidence wins. And right now, Blake is failing on all three. The attorney who quit, now identified as a high-profile West Coast litigator with over 2 decades of courtroom experience, was, according to leaked notes, growing increasingly concerned about client interference with legal obligations. Translated, Blake was allegedly making decisions that undermined her own defense, possibly hiding documents contradicting sworn statements or attempting to manipulate the narrative. Against legal advice, let's be very clear about the implications of that. If an attorney formally withdraws citing unethical pressures or client misdirection, the court may not just accept the withdrawal, they may launch a formal review of the behavior that prompted it. That means more scrutiny, more eyes on Blake's past filings, and possibly more legal trouble. There's even the possibility of sanctions for abusing the legal process, especially if the court determines that Blake's actions were designed to harass, intimidate, or obstruct the truth. That's not speculation, that's precedent. Courts have issued fines, dismissed claims, and even referred cases for criminal investigation when celebrities or public figures tried to use the system to settle personal scores. And don't think the judge hasn't noticed the pattern. According to people familiar with the last closed-door hearing, the judge was visibly exasperated with the inconsistency of Lively's filings. This is not a social media forum, the judge reportedly said. You do not file motions based on how you want to be perceived. You file them based on evidence. That comment, delivered directly to Blake's former counsel, was a warning. And now that the attorney is gone, that warning has become a legal threat. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's team continues to move quietly and methodically while Blake's legal team melts down. Baldoni's lawyers have filed 3 key motions in the last month, each one supported by exhibits, witness statements, and verified data logs. They've asked the court to compel production of documents Blake allegedly promised, but never delivered. They've requested penalties for what they're calling a bad faith campaign of misdirection, and they've filed to block any attempt by Blake's new legal team to further delay proceedings. In other words, Baldoni is done playing nice. And who can blame him from the beginning? This case has been twisted into something more than a legal dispute. It's been a war of narratives. And Blake believed wrongly that her fame would shield her, but what she didn't account for was how quickly that fame can turn against her when it's exposed as hollow, orchestrated, and built on intimidation. The new attorney rumored to be stepping in is a former entertainment litigator turned crisis manager. That alone speaks volumes. Blake doesn't just need a lawyer now, she needs a PR firefighter. But even that might not be enough, because legal crises move faster than image consultants. And once you lose the court's trust, no publicist in the world can save you. And yet, as bad as this all sounds, we haven't even reached the most chilling part. Because behind all of this, behind the headlines, the hearings, the legal jargon, are the text messages. The ones involving Taylor Swift, the ones the judge ruled were relevant and admissible. The ones Blake desperately fought to keep sealed. Those texts are, according to sources, devastating. Not because they prove a crime, but because they obliterate her credibility. Insiders say the messages suggest coordination, manipulation, and perhaps even an effort to plant doubt in the public before any evidence was reviewed by a court. And if the jury ever sees them, it's over. And yes, there will be a jury if the case survives to trial. But at this rate, that's looking less likely by the day. Multiple legal experts now believe the case is on track to be dismissed, especially if Blake's new legal team fails to meet the next disclosure deadline. And if that happens, it won't just be a legal defeat. It will be a reputational collapse that takes down more than just one lawsuit. Because now there are whispers that other parties, former colleagues, journalists, even staff may come forward. People who stayed quiet because of NDA letters, people who feared retaliation. But now, seeing Blake's power start to fade, they may be emboldened to speak. That's how it always happens. Power protects until it doesn't, and once the armor cracks, the truth comes flooding in. And here's what that truth might look like: a celebrity who used her platform not to uplift, but to control; a media darling who manipulated coverage. Behind the scenes, a legal strategy built not on defense but on domination. An APR machine that finally ran out of fuel. The story of Blake Lively's legal meltdown is not just about a court case. It's about the illusion of control. It's about what happens when someone at the top forgets that image isn't everything, and that in a courtroom the only thing that matters is the truth. As the legal chaos around Blake Lively intensifies, the heart of the controversy is finally coming into sharp, unrelenting focus: Taylor Swift's private messages. That's right. The very texts Blake tried to keep buried, messages exchanged with one of the most powerful women in entertainment, are now legally admissible, and they are poised to shatter what's left of Blake's carefully crafted public narrative. Let's break it down. According to multiple insider reports, the judge ruled that Taylor's texts were material and probative to the central dispute. In legal terms, that means they're not just relevant, they're crucial. These aren't idle conversations about friendship or fashion. These are strategic exchanges, some of them reportedly written in real time during the opening stages of Blake's legal attacks on Justin Baldoni. And what do they reveal? First, a pattern of media coordination. According to a leak from a source close to the investigation, some of the messages show Blake and Taylor discussing how to get ahead of the story with references to specific journalists, publications, and even content creators. These messages suggest that Blake was not simply reacting to public claims, but trying to preemptively frame the narrative in her favor. Second, and perhaps more damning, are the references to Justin Baldoni himself. One text reportedly reads, "He thinks he can make this ugly, but he's underestimating how fast we move." Another mentions, "We don't need facts, we just need the internet." That message alone, if verified, could completely demolish Blake's legal defense and reputation in one blow. The court has already acknowledged that these messages paint a very different picture from the public one Blake tried to maintain. The version where she's the victim under siege by a malicious ex-colleague. The version where Justin Baldoni is the manipulator, but now the texts tell a different story. A story where Blake may have been the strategist, the orchestrator, the person pulling strings behind the curtain while pretending to be under attack. And what about Taylor Swift? Her team has remained largely silent. But the leak has stirred massive speculation online. Fans are divided. Some are demanding context, suggesting the texts are being twisted. Others, especially those loyal to Baldoni, are accusing both Blake and Taylor of exploiting their influence to suppress uncomfortable truths. The fallout for Swift is uncertain, but one thing is clear: Blake's connection to Taylor may no longer be a shield. It may be a liability, because in the eyes of the court, it doesn't matter who you're friends with. It matters what you say, what you do, and what evidence exists. And if that evidence points to an effort to manipulate legal proceedings or shape public opinion through coordinated pressure, the consequences could be severe. Let's talk about those consequences. First, legal sanctions. If it's proven that Blake attempted to interfere with the discovery process, misled the court, or filed claims she knew were baseless, the judge has several options: fines, a formal reprimand, dismissal of her counterclaims. In the most serious scenarios, the case could be referred for criminal review if there's evidence of perjury or obstruction. Second, industry blacklist. No one in Hollywood will say it publicly, but blacklisting is real. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's not always dramatic. But it starts with phone calls that go unanswered, projects that fall through, endorsement deals that quietly shift directions. And for someone like Blake, whose value has always been tied to her pristine image, that kind of silent collapse can be career-ending. And then there's Ryan Reynolds. To say the strain is visible is an understatement. While the couple has always projected unity, there have been no joint public appearances. Since the attorney resignation, Ryan's social media has gone dark, and insiders say he's livid that Taylor's name is now entangled in the case. Ryan knows this affects him, to said one person close to the situation. He's not just Blake's husband, he's part of the brand, and the brand is bleeding. There are also rumors that Blake's insistence on fighting this case, despite early warnings from advisors, created deep rifts between her and Ryan. He wanted to settle, make it go away, one source claims, but she was convinced she could control it. Now look what's happening. And while no divorce or official separation has been confirmed, the media has been quick to speculate. Body language experts have already started analyzing old clips. Online threads are filled with theories, and Hollywood sees an image crisis unfolding in real time. Now let's look at how the public is reacting. The same audience that once adored Blake for her style, grace, and seemingly drama-free life is now dissecting her every move. Reddit threads, TikTok breakdowns, YouTube essays with hundreds of thousands of views. They're analyzing timelines, court filings, and leaked messages with the fervor of investigative journalists. One particularly viral post read, "Blake always seemed too polished, too perfect. It was only a matter of time before the cracks showed, but this is next-level manipulation." Another post on Twitter X read, "If you're using the courts to silence people and dragging other celebrities into it, you don't deserve the pedestal you built." The truth always comes out, and therein lies the biggest problem for Blake Lively right now. Not the court deadlines, not the failed PR spin, not even the attorney walking away. The biggest problem is this: the public doesn't trust her anymore. And once public trust is gone, especially in the age of receipts, screenshots, and viral exposes, it's almost impossible to win it back. Every interview, every red carpet appearance, every future role will be viewed through this new lens. She's no longer just an actress, she's a figure of controversy. So what happens now? Her new legal team has just 2 weeks to respond to the court's demand for full evidentiary compliance. That includes handing over all communications, including texts with Taylor Swift, emails, phone logs, and internal memos related to her PR firm's strategy. If she fails to comply or submits materials that contradict earlier claims, the judge can dismiss the case without further hearings. Justin Baldoni's team is ready. They've already filed to compel discovery, and sources say they're preparing to ask for sanctions if Blake misses the next deadline. In court, missing a deadline isn't just an inconvenience, it's a sign you're not taking the process seriously. And if the judge agrees it's game over, Blake could lose not only the ability to countersue but also open herself up to a defamation claim from Baldoni. A real one, the kind that could cost her millions. And all of it could have been avoided months ago. Her own legal counsel warned her. Her PR team reportedly begged her to stay quiet. Ryan Reynolds, by multiple accounts, pleaded with her to settle, but she didn't because she believed she could control the story. But now the story is writing itself, and she's no longer the author. Courtroom lights are growing dimmer for Blake Lively, and what once felt like a winnable battle now looks more like a slow public implosion. This isn't just a celebrity lawsuit gone wrong, this is a case study in how ego, power, and control collide with the cold machinery of the justice system. And at the center of it all is a woman who believed her image was bulletproof. It wasn't. In the most recent court filing, the judge issued a final warning to Blake's legal team. The court order, dated just days after her lead attorney withdrew, gave her 14 days to produce specific previously requested documents, including full text records with Taylor Swift PR directives and internal communication between her attorneys and management. The language was unambiguous. Failure to comply with this directive shall result in sanctions, including but not limited to the dismissal of defendants' counterclaims with prejudice. With prejudice, that's key. If Blake's claims are dismissed with prejudice, that means she can't refile them. They're gone, erased. It would be a definitive loss, not just a procedural error. And from what we know now, she may not meet that deadline. Her new legal team is already scrambling. According to insiders, they're reviewing thousands of pages of communications and trying to clean up inconsistencies in prior filings. But the deeper they dig, the worse things seem to look. Conflicting statements, missing timestamps, texts that suggest entirely different motivations than the ones Blake originally claimed in court. Worse still, at least one former employee, a publicist who worked with Blake during the early days of the scandal, is now in contact with Baldoni's team. Sources say this individual has emails and memos that directly contradict Blake's sworn testimony. That's not just bad, that's potentially perjury. And if those claims check out, the court won't stop at dismissal. They'll likely refer the matter for further review. Blake may find herself facing a new storm, not as a plaintiff or defendant, but as someone accused of misleading the court. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's legal team has filed a motion of their own, a request for immediate summary judgment. That's a bold move, essentially telling the court, we don't even need a trial. The facts speak for themselves. And if the judge agrees, this entire case could be resolved within weeks. And that would be a stunning, humiliating defeat for Blake. Let's recap how far we've come. She started this legal fight believing she could control the outcome. She ignored her team's advice, bypassed discovery obligations, and tried to manipulate the media. She lost her lead attorney, one of the top litigators in the entertainment industry, due to what insiders are calling ethical red lines. She fought to keep explosive texts with Taylor Swift sealed. She lost. And now she's under threat of having her entire legal strategy obliterated by the court. And through it all, not a single statement of support from Ryan Reynolds. Not a single word from Taylor Swift. No Instagram tributes, no celebrity endorsements. Just silence, because no one wants to be the next name pulled into this vortex. There are already signs that the Hollywood elite is backing away. Reports suggest that Lively's name was quietly pulled from negotiations for 2 major productions. Luxury brands are distancing themselves. Fashion Week invitations that were once automatic are no longer being sent. Even Blake's once thriving social media empire is starting to erode. Her engagement numbers have dropped sharply. Once devoted fan accounts are now posting cautiously, if at all. Reddit threads once filled with adoration are now dissecting her every move with surgical precision. The era of image control is over, and now the consequences are coming due. But there's one more bombshell, possibly the most devastating of all. The final statement issued by Blake's former lead attorney, submitted under seal, but partially quoted in court filings, contains the following line: "It is my professional opinion that continued representation of Ms. Lively would place the integrity of these proceedings at risk. I can no longer ethically or legally defend a strategy that relies on selective disclosure, media manipulation, and disregard for discovery obligations." Let that sink in. Her own lawyer said he couldn't continue because her actions were putting the court's integrity at risk. It doesn't get worse than that. It's the legal equivalent of a doctor saying my patient refuses treatment and is actively making themselves sicker. The fall of a public figure is rarely just one moment. It's a series of small fractures, ignored warnings, unwise decisions, and a refusal to let go of control that eventually shatter everything. And in the case of Blake Lively, we have just witnessed all of those fractures converge into one monumental collapse. This saga didn't begin with a courtroom filing. It began with Blake's belief that her image, her alliances, and her resources could insulate her from scrutiny, that she could rewrite the narrative before anyone had a chance to ask the hard questions. But courtrooms don't care about red carpets, judges don't read tabloids, and the truth doesn't flinch under spotlight, it fights back. Blake's decision to pursue legal retaliation, allegedly with limited evidence and a questionable motive, was the first major mistake. She underestimated Justin Baldoni, assuming he'd cave under pressure or vanish beneath the weight of her PR machine. Instead, he stood firm. His legal team built a case grounded in documentation and quiet professionalism, and while Blake relied on celebrity alliances and media buzz, Baldoni relied on patience, procedure, and the slow drip of verified facts. Then came the Taylor Swift texts, arguably the most dramatic turning point in the entire case. Blake's refusal to release them and her attorney's desperate legal maneuvers to keep them sealed only fueled speculation. And once the court ruled that they were relevant and had to be disclosed, the truth began to spill. And with it, the foundation of her legal defense crumbled. Because those texts revealed far more than strategy, they revealed intent. Intent to control the narrative, intent to undermine an opponent, and possibly intent to deceive. By the time her lead attorney quit, the cracks had become canyons, ethical lines had been crossed, warnings were ignored, court orders were resisted, and the man who was supposed to protect her from implosion, the attorney hired to guide her through this legal labyrinth, walked away stating that he could no longer ethically defend her. And that right there is the death knell of any case. From that point forward, Blake became a legal orphan, scrambling to find new representation, rushing to meet court deadlines, watching her credibility disintegrate in real time. The once confident star, once the darling of every major brand and fanbase, found herself cornered, not just by the court but by the court of public opinion. Because once the public turns on you, once the admiration becomes suspicion, and the applause becomes scrutiny, there is no going back. And it wasn't just the fans. It was Hollywood itself. Studios have gone quiet. Collaborators have ghosted. Ryan Reynolds, her most powerful and visible ally, has remained silent through it all. And Taylor Swift, not a word, not a tweet, not a lyric in sight. Her absence speaks volumes. Why? Because they know what's coming. The legal dismissal isn't just likely, it's imminent. The court has issued its final warning. Blake's new legal team has failed to repair the damage. And even if the court doesn't outright toss the case, the reputational damage is already irreversible. Even if she wins on a technicality, she's lost everything that really mattered: her trust, her influence, her reputation. And as the media continues to comb through the wreckage, more questions arise. How many others were silenced or threatened along the way? How many allies were manipulated into defending a cause they didn't fully understand? How many journalists, creators, or whistleblowers were subtly pushed out of the conversation because they dared to challenge a dominant narrative? Because what this case has truly revealed is a larger, darker truth about celebrity and control. That behind every polished Instagram post and carefully staged red carpet moment lies a machine built to shape public perception, to drown dissent, to spin half-truths into absolutes. But when that machine breaks, when the spin fails, and the truth gets out, the fall is spectacular. Blake Lively's legal meltdown will be studied for years to come, not just as a failed lawsuit, but as a case study in hubris, in what happens when someone mistakes fame for invincibility, when someone thinks charm can override ethics, when someone puts power before principle. And now that legacy is being rewritten in real time, not by stylists, not by agents, not even by lawyers, but by truth, a truth that came out slowly, painfully, and explosively. And as we close the final chapter of this story, let's be clear, this wasn't about one text message or one withdrawn lawyer, it was about choices. Blake Lively had every opportunity to handle this differently. She could have settled. She could have apologized. She could have faced the facts. Instead, she tried to control the facts, and now she's paying the price. In the day